Oh, should I clap? Our school serves students that come from all 8 wards in Washington, D.C., which means that it spans across the entire district. So that's pretty telling for me because it says that families from all over the district, whether they're living in a more affluent neighborhood or not, find something unique about our particular school that they want for their child. I will never forget the day. I was only 4 years old, but when my mom told me we were coming to the United States, I remember that the first few years were really, really tough. My parents didn't both work every day, and my dad would come home with really dirty hands. One time, I heard my parents in the middle of a conversation about whether or not they would have enough money to pay the bills for that month. And I said, "Papi, ¿qué pasa? ¿Qué pasa? ¿Tienen dinero para pagar la renta?" And my dad's face turned white. And he looks at me almost like he had just heard something really painful. And he says, "Daniela, tú no te tienes que preocupar de nada que tenga que ver con la casa y con el dinero y con cómo vivimos. Tú solo preocúpate de tu educación." That message stuck with me in a very, very deep way and has set the foundation for who I have become as a person and now as an educator. So I was faced with the choice between working at a bilingual school that was well operating, that had mostly a middle-class demographic of students and families. The other choice was working at a school that was only 5 years old and was not making the academic gains it needed to be making for the students it was serving. And so there was a choice there that I needed to make of taking a risk and choosing to be part of a school that was not making the gains it needed to make and that needed to be transformed. You fast forward, the school that was a failing school when it was 5 years old, now at 15 years old, the school is among the highest performing schools in the city, while still serving the same population of very diverse student body, many at-risk students, and has one of the highest wait list numbers of any school in the city. So I feel that that was the appropriate choice to have made at the time.
I think it's very important for students to see someone who looks like them, who comes from an environment that they come from, at the head of their school, running the school. I think having a person of color, a woman, somebody who comes from this type of neighborhood and situations that our children and our families go through, I think it's a very necessary component if you want to have a bilingual school in an urban setting. It gives them, at the very least, a role model, someone that they could look up to, something that they could really aspire to be in the future. I know for myself, I didn't have that. Every time I had a role model, and they were great role models, most of the time they were white people, and that was great, but there was like a missing piece that I always experienced growing up, and I didn't fully realize until I came to work here. Our school accepts all students of all backgrounds. Through the lottery system, any kid can come to the school. I think here we value all of the cultures, all the languages. I think we try to make it as inclusive, as a welcoming place as we possibly can. And I think for a child to grow up with those values is just completely monumental.
My first language is Espanol, and I wanted my kids to learn Spanish, but I didn't want them just to learn it, but I wanted them to love it. Not just to say, "Hola, ¿cómo estás?" No, but to know the meaning behind.
It's a lot of who am I? Where do I belong? How do I position myself to be accepted in each of these different communities and cultures and countries? And very easily, kids and adults feel lost in that setting. And I experienced that. I experienced that multiple times. Our student body is very diverse, and we have a connection that we feel immediately, where I know what they're dealing with at home because I represent the community that I'm standing in front of, and my community is me. What we're able to do as a school, teaching reading, writing, math, and science, it goes beyond that. It teaches values, it teaches responsibility, it teaches understanding of self and autonomy and independence and the strength of their voice. We have a tagline which is Juntos somos líderes. Together we lead. This effort is too big to be the responsibility of one person. So the idea of community, of togetherness, of being a team, that is definitely at the forefront of how we operate our school. I would love to see that the advocates of charter schools see the amazing opportunities that charter schools bring and have for serving the most vulnerable populations of students even more deeply than many of the public district schools are able to serve kids. We need to raise awareness about the potential that many of our schools have, especially at the schools that are led by school leaders of color.